Comprehensive input, N+1, Stephen Krashen, the ultimate method to learn a language. You hear it all the time, you see it all the time. A method that everybody says works. Also, the method that everybody uses, but still not quite make it. Often, not even close. There can only be one truth. Somebody's lying, or somebody's doing it wrong. There's gotta be something wrong. Why it works, why it may not work, what are some of the problems, what are some of the real problems? Let's find out. Okay, so I got 3 major problems with comprehensible input. Let's start with the major one. So whenever you are trying to solve a problem and you've been using a method for a while and it's not working and you change it to a new one, and in this case, that's comprehensible input, you're expecting to change something using this method, right? That's a key. It's gotta change something. If it doesn't change anything, it'll just give you the same effect as the old method that you've been testing out for a long time, which didn't work. Let's assume comprehensible input actually works. It'll definitely change something, but what is that? Comprehensible input hypothesis, it doesn't say that. It only tells you that if you keep on doing comprehensible input, one day you'll just naturally be able to speak English fluently. It sounds a lot like it promises you a happy ending at the end as long as you try hard enough, but it doesn't tell you when that happy ending is gonna come around and what you can actually do to achieve that happy ending. Of course, in the middle of the way, you doubt, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? And you change, you tweak, you try harder, still don't see any results. You give up and fails to address this question, what it actually can achieve. What kind of effect we can expect from comprehensible input? What's gonna change? Are we going to see language in a different way? Are we going to process English in a more efficient way? And what's that? It doesn't say anything about that, it just tells you keep on receiving comprehensible input and one day you'll be able to speak English fluently. But you know what, language is too complex and vast to be explained in such a way. We need to understand how we actually decode, construct language to get our meanings across. We also need to understand how language information is actually stored in our brain and how we assess that in an efficient way. And we also need to understand how we actually produce a sound to present a word and then turn that into meaning. All of those nuances matter a lot because that's what we are trying to change from a sloppy, inefficient way of processing or storing language information to a more efficient way. Comprehensible input theory says it can help us to do that, but how exactly does it help us? If we don't know specifically what we need to do, we sometimes don't really know, are we actually doing it the right way? You might be doing the right thing, but because you have no idea whether or not you're actually doing it the correct way, so you may give up when you're super close to the finishing line. And you might be doing it the wrong way, and in that case, you're just wasting a lot of time. You're just reading, but not in the way that comprehensible input wants you to read. You're reading it the wrong way, so you're not changing anything when it comes to the way that you process a language. And that's the thing that we're trying to change. So in this sense, a comprehensible theory, I've been saying theory a lot, but I think it's a hypothesis. It's only like there's a potential that it can help you to really improve your linguistic ability, but it may not. So it's a hypothesis. So this hypothesis sounds a lot like an empty promise in this sense. It only tells you there's a happy ending if you work hard on it, if you keep on, receiving a significant, tremendous amount, a huge amount of comprehensible and intriguing input, you'll definitely be able to make it one day. I believe that's gonna happen, but that's gonna take you a long time if you don't know what exactly you're trying to change. But if we can know what we're actually using comprehensible input to change, we might be able to speed up and accelerate the process. So that's a major problem that I have with comprehensible input. It sounds like an empty promise. It only tells you there's a happy ending, but it doesn't tell you how exactly you're going to get there. Moving on to the next problem, and that's, can comprehensible input actually help you to reach a highly proficient level to a point where you can navigate English or any other languages that you are learning effortlessly. I think it's very hard to say. If you look at research, they often compare people using comprehensible input theory to study English and people using traditional way to study English and then compare them. But the way they assess their abilities often by using traditional tests like a TOEFL, IELTS, or some other English test. And these people may reach like IELTS 7 or equivalent in other tests. But does that truly mean that these people are highly efficient? For IELTS Band 7 candidates, they might be able to use English and communicate their ideas, but it's not at an effortless level. And for a lot of us, we want to reach this highly efficient level that we can use the language effortlessly, efficiently, without too much thinking. And that's way beyond the 7. Can comprehensible input theory really help us to do that? I don't see a lot of papers that actually have participants reach to that level. To fully trust the comprehensible input, we definitely need more data and research evidence to prove that it can actually help us to reach to that level, but it's extremely difficult to do because there are so many uncontrollable factors involved, and you might see some people on the internet attributing their success to comprehensible input. They're saying their success is all because comprehensible input, but is it really? Is it only because comprehensible input theory, or comprehensible input is only one important factor when it comes to their success? And there are a lot of other factors also play a role, and they forgot to mention any of these factors, so you don't see the full picture. Well, some of them might say that, oh, no, I'm pretty sure it's only because comprehensible input, and they make it really convincing and compelling. But how can you be so sure? Is there a chance that you actually did a lot of other practices and they also helped you to improve your linguistic ability? You just didn't realize they actually helped you. Just like before you know this concept of comprehensible input, you didn't know that's a thing and that's the thing that helped you to improve your English ability. It's only after you know this concept you're using it to explain this whole story. So you're telling yourself this story. It sounds a lot like a cherry-picking evidence research papers that's in favor of your side of argument and neglecting everything else. That's not very fair. That's not convincing at all. That's only one side of the story. And truth be told, we only get to see this side of the story. It's often successful stories that get to be shared and heard by people on the other side. Those failed stories, they don't get any attention. But one day when I was browsing on YouTube, I came across a guy. He documented his whole journey of learning Japanese, conforming to the rule of comprehensible input. If I'm being brutally honest, it's nothing like those successful stories that you heard. Not even close. It's not a success.
I've really hit a plateau with my language learning. It's really taking me such a long time to feel any improvements in my ability with Japanese. I feel it feels like it's taking absolutely forever.
And I bet there are many more stories like that than those successful stories that you hear so often online. The third problem that I had with comprehensible input theory is practical issues. So there are two major principles when it comes to comprehensible input. One is comprehensible, the other is intriguing. So how do you define comprehensible? How do you define something to be comprehensible? Do people need to understand 80% of it, or 90% of it, or maybe 99% of it, or maybe 10% or 20% would be fine? And some people say 80%. How do you know that? So how do you prove that? If you can't, that means some people are using too difficult materials and some people are actually using too easy materials. In both cases, learners are not getting the largest amount of gains from their learning because they're not using truly comprehensible material. So it's a very vague concept. And intriguing is also a very problematic concept. I think we can all agree that everybody's different, so everybody has different tastes. I've certainly had the experience of reading something that I didn't like and having to push through it. I'm talking about the Harry Potter series. There was a period of time I was a firm believer of a comprehensible input, so I tried to read the Harry Potter series, but I didn't like it. But I was powering through because that's what people recommended, and they say this is a great material for comprehensible input. And I was like, okay, let's do that. But I read until I was getting to a point where I resent studying English. I hated it so much that very quickly I stopped reading and stopped learning altogether. And that's the total opposite that comprehensible input is trying to do. And to be fair, that's not the fault of comprehensible input. It's actually people recommending and people who blindlessly buy into those recommended reading lists. You definitely want to spend a little bit of time to seriously think about what actually intrigues you and what's actually comprehensible at this stage, and choose these kind of materials instead of a random recommendation list from a person that you don't even know, right? But it's easier said than done, because a lot of times we don't really care about the process being pleasant or not. Even if it's really tedious and hard and difficult, we're fine with that, and we think we can push through because we just want the result. If you tell me that I can actually speak English fluently and I just need to suffer for about like a half year or maybe a year, I'm okay with that. I don't really care, like suffering for a little while and be able to get it at the end. But the thing is, you don't know how long that's gonna take. And again, comprehensible input doesn't say anything about that, and it doesn't say anything about what exactly you're trying to change by doing that comprehensible input. It only tells you do that and do that, you'll be able to do that. But it doesn't say how are you going to get to that point where you'll be able to do that. It's an empty promise. I don't know why, but I'm on fire today. So many negative opinions about comprehensible input. But don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing comprehensible input. I actually do believe it can work. It's just that I don't think the picture that we're getting from comprehensible input that's portrayed by this research or people's stories, successful stories that they shared about their learning journey, is the full picture of a comprehensible input. I just want to present you a full picture of it and realize language is much more nuanced and vast and complex than a simple comprehensible input hypothesis can explain. There are a lot more to it. So when you are practicing comprehensible input, don't just buy into it and keep on doing and never bother to think about improving your learning method or efficiency anymore. I think that's not the way to go about it. I don't think there's only one way to get to the finish line. I think there are a lot more ways to get to that point, and everybody probably has a different way to get to that point. Even though on the surface level, when you hear those people's story, they sound very similar and they sound a lot like they only used the comprehensible input, but it's actually not. It's probably because those differences actually helped them to get to the point. I think we definitely need to be more open-minded to different opinions and also listen to yourself, how you feel about a certain learning method when you are practicing and using it. See if it fits your learning style. If it doesn't, no matter how many good things people say about it, it's probably not the best one for you, and you need to keep on refining your learning method until you find the right one for you. So I think that's the way to go about language learning. It's really a journey of problem solving. Keep an eye on those problems. If you can identify those learning problems that you are facing and you can solve it, I think at the end of the day, you definitely reach it, either in the way that's comprehensible input or maybe some other ways that people don't really talk about it, but it's a way that works for you. So that's a wrap for this comprehensible input video series. I've done 3, 4 videos on that. Really took me a lot of time, but I'm so glad I finally get to put an end to it once and for all, so that I can move on to talk about some other things that really interests me, because comprehensible input is really getting a little bit old to me. So I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah, bye. I'm super excited. My language course is now open for enrollment. It doesn't teach grammar, vocabulary, whatever. That shit didn't work then. It's not gonna work now. The reason why you get stuck with your language learning is not because you aren't working hard enough. It's actually because you're working way too hard the wrong way. Forcing your brain to do things it doesn't like to do, memorizing vocabulary, grammar, whatever. Of course you get stuck. Stop doing that. Learn how your brain processes language, remember things. skills, master skills. Learn in the way that your brain operates and enjoys. You supercharge your learning efficiency. This is what the course is all about, to make your learning easy and fun so that you want to come back for more and more every single day. You literally get addicted to learning. Isn't that cool? It's super cool. If you're tired of English getting in the way of living the best possible life that you deserve to live, if you don't want to waste any more time, now's your chance. I'll see you there.